How's it going? I'm Jared Gillis. Welcome to another All About RVs. Today, I wanted to share with you a handful of DIY RV tricks that we use on our RV. Some of these, I've been wondering why it's taken me so long to do them, such a simple, small project for the RV that makes a big difference. And some of these other ones is how I kind of look at the RV with other RV projects and how these DIY tips really help me with some of the modifications that we've done to our RV. So number one is how this helps us on our stairs. Now these stairs in our fifth wheel, we go up and down them all the time, going up to the bedroom, to the bathroom, coming back down, so they get used all the time. And they're really oddly shaped. There's a real odd shape to them, and the material that they're made out of is really not that grippy. So they're somewhat slippery, oddly shaped, and we're up and down them all the time. Occasionally somebody will slip, they usually catch themselves, but I'd like to eliminate that slipping. I don't want anybody getting hurt inside of our RV. So I have this transparent anti-slip strip. Now I don't really need to cover the entire step with this, I just need to cover that front leading edge. So what I did is I just took this, kind of laid it out exactly where I would like it. I took a pen underneath there and I marked the shape of the step since it's so odd, and then you can put this adhesive on there. Now I've seen this used on outside steps, but I never thought about using it on the inside steps. And those are the ones that we were typically slipping on because there's already a grip tape on the outside of our RV stairs for the outdoor ones. Now it is transparent, but you can still see it on the step. I didn't really want to change the look of the steps at this point unless I swap out the steps entirely, but this transparent anti-slip strip worked really well in this application. So you can see what that strip looks like on that bottom one, and I haven't done it to the top one yet. But it gives you an example of what the step will look like after you put that strip on compared to the original. Now, as always, I'll put a link down in the description to everything that we're talking about because this, I didn't want it to feel like sandpaper on the feet if you're walking through here with bare feet. This has more of a rubbery texture to it, so it works well. Now, the next thing is going to be this drill right here. So this is a little modification I made to this because when you're going through the RV, you have the Phillips bit and you have the Robertson square bit, and so I wanted to add a little holder on the side to be able to have both, because when you grab this you don't want to get into a project, realize that you need the Robertson square bit, and then all of a sudden you have to go and track down a Phillips bit. So having it right there makes it so handy for so many different projects on the RV. Now they have an attachment that can screw right onto the side. I just used an old receiver and attached it to the side so it magnetizes right in there, but the other bit holder that screws onto the side, you can have multiple bits on there and a magnet on the side. So if you had screws or something like that, it comes in really handy. But I never want to grab my drill or impact driver and not have both of these bits inside of the RV. Now that brings us to a question that I get all the time is how do you get wires throughout your RV? Say you're putting in a solar setup and you need to get the wires from the roof down to the batteries, or you need to get a network cable for a device that you want to hardwire, or whatever it might be. Like we have the Truma AquaGo, we had to get a wire from here down to the water heater. So how do you get those wires from point A to point B? So here are my tips for how you do that, because this will work in so many different projects, and these tips will make it easier and easier for future projects. So step one, I try and look at the RV and I want to see the paths that I have from the top to the bottom or front to back that I would have the most access to and the least restrictions. I know that sounds really simple, but that's the way that I look at it and I process it. So for example, if I'm running a cell phone booster from the top to the bottom, I want to look at, do I want to have that in the front of the RV? Do I want to have that in the back? And what are my two options? So in the front of the RV, this area actually works really well for us. For one, I know that this is a plumbing wall, backs up against the bathroom here, and so there's going to be a plumbing vent because I can see it on the roof of the RV. So I know there's going to be a little bit of space inside of this wall. Number two, I have access at the bottom. The bottom, I can pull just a couple of panels inside of that storage pass-through bay, and I have full access to where I can see wires coming through this wall already down into that area. Number two, I have access right here in the middle because I know by looking at these cabinets and just kind of looking at the RV that there's a dead space in here. That's how they have this control panel here. And so if I pull this control panel out, it gives me access inside of this wall in the middle. So if I'm having an issue fishing that wire from the bottom to the top and I need access in the middle to make it a little easier, I have access by removing this panel, and now I can reach inside that wall to clear whatever I need to clear. And I use a fish tape because just trying to stick a wire through a wall isn't going to work. If you have something like a fish tape where you can push and you can pull with something that gives you a little bit more rigidity and flexibility, that's going to be the way you want to go. Now at the ceiling, I want access also. So if I'm doing a roof penetration, I have access to where those wires are coming out of the top of the wall and where it's going to be going through that small attic space before it penetrates to the roof of the RV. And where I like to gain access into the attic space of the RV are the vents. You can see just by removing this trim piece, I don't even have to remove the entire fan. I now have access into the attic. So I can reach back in there and feel where those wires are coming up out of the wall. I can also verify before I drill through the roof to make sure I'm not going to hit any wires or anything like that. So having that much access is indispensable when you're trying to fish wires through the wall. It's a nice little trick. It gives you decent access and nobody even knows you're there when you put the trim piece back up. So this location right here gives me a lot of access to be able to chase those wires successfully from the ceiling down to the basement without leaving any evidence that I had to punch any holes in the wall or anything like that. I can put everything back together as it was and you would never know that we made an addition there. But here is a tip that can save you a lot of time on future projects, and it's so simple to do. I found that when you chase wires through the wall, maybe this was for a solar project and it worked out really well. There might be a future project where you want a cell phone booster up on the roof and you want to chase it down through the same area. When you're pulling that wire back through, if you have a string that you can attach from top to bottom that you can access in the attic and access in that basement, and you don't have to worry about the middle section again, it makes it so much easier for future projects. So you can just use that string to pull your wire up. You're always kind of future-proofing if you want to do another project in that area. It works out really well. So here's another trick. If I'm trying to get the wires from the ceiling down to the underbelly in the back of the RV, it's a little bit different scenario for us in this one. So if I needed to gain access in the middle of the wall in order to chase those wires from top to bottom, I have at the top, I have the fan in that room. At the bottom, I have cabinets that I can cut into that wall and gain access to it. But if I needed access in the middle, I have that TV station. So I can put in a cut-in box, and this is just a low voltage one. So there's really no box to it. It's more of just a cut-in ring that I can put into that space, and then I can put a cover on it and I can have access to the wall in the middle section there. So having the access in the middle can be a big deal, especially in these really tight situations with the RV, and this access could mean you got the wire from the top to the bottom or that you couldn't. So this is going to hide in that TV station area. Nobody's going to think any the wiser that there's a wall plate in that TV area. This gives me the ability to cut into the wall and not have it look like a patch, but it looks like it's intentional and meant to be there. Now, modification I didn't think much about, but I've had a lot of questions about, and it's the shelf that the batteries sit on. So I put this shelf in here for a few different reasons. Number one, I wanted to have storage underneath here. Number two, I wanted to get it off the bottom and not all the way at the top so that it's not in the extreme heat. So in the freezing cold temperatures, it's not sitting against this metal that is exposed to the outside. So it helps maintain that. But the shelf is really, really simple. It's basically just a piece of plywood that's wrapped in fabric so it looks a little bit nicer. And I have 4 shelf brackets on here. I have 2 down below that support it, and then that bolts through. So these shelf brackets actually bolt through that piece of plywood, and these top shelf brackets, the screw holes at the top actually bolt through this plywood wall here. So this is a thicker plywood wall, and so it bolts all the way through that, and it's not just screws holding in there. So these are sheet metal screws down at the bottom, but the combination of all that makes it a really sturdy shelf for these batteries to sit on. And then I made it just a little bit bigger so I could have a piece of wood, and I just painted it on the front here to be able to nest in place. I have 3 L brackets that screw into the shelf and then screw into this wood, and it keeps everything from trying to slide out. If I was building another system, I would probably do a similar shelf to this one. So I think that's going to do it for today. I hope these tips help you guys out. So whether you needed to add some grip to your stairs on the inside of the RV or the outside ones, or you needed to run new wires through the wall and you were trying to figure out how to gain access to that, or even if it's just the simple tip of having multiple bits on your impact driver or drill so it's just handy to have and easy to use, I hope these things help you guys out. So if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos about RVing, hit that subscribe button. And if we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will see you next video.